Okay, our first speaker this evening will be Kate Dalley. She's the host for the Fox News affiliate live radio show, the Kate Dalley Show, since 2011. So you've survived there for 4 years, in spite of your controversial views. Oh my goodness. Were you going to talk anything about some of the really weird things out there that most people don't believe or not? Okay, she is. Okay, I won't steal her thunder. She grew up in California, went to Rick's College when it was called Rick's. Yeah. My wife went there too. Went on a mission for the LDS Church to Seattle, Washington. She has some teaching materials that she's put together that are found in Walmart. She produced a DVD for Dancing with the Stars. Was even a guest on Oprah Winfrey's show. Can you imagine? And she's here with us tonight. Can you? Okay. She has a 3-hour daily show that's live in Utah, streamed live all over the nation, listened to in over 23 countries, and it's rated the #1 radio program in southern Utah. She's been a columnist and a speaker, and she's married and has 3 children. I'm very pleased to have that. And I think your husband is at a wedding tonight or something. Not his own, but somebody else's, right? Okay. Whew. Had me worried. Actually, it's a niece, I think, or something, isn't it? Okay. Anyway, I hope that you don't feel bad about me kind of maybe joking a little bit with you. It's a heavy subject tonight, but I think we can still enjoy each other's association. So continue to eat, listen to Kate, and I'm very interested from what my wife Tammy has told me about her, some of the things she might talk about. I'm very interested. So Kate?
Well, it's great to be here. This is my kind of crowd. You know, I have to face everyone else on the radio from every walk of life you can imagine, and so this is actually really fun. You know, what's funny about the Oprah show, when people used to ask me why I was on it, I said that I escaped a polygamous clan, and people would believe me. I was like, no, really, I'm not. Okay, so that was my reason for being on. Or what I would tell people. All right, the human brain is a funny thing. It starts working the minute you're born and stops the minute you get in front of people. So I'm gonna try and do the best I can. And you know, I'm used to doing this behind a mic in a really beautiful studio with nobody watching. So it's a little easier to do it that way, I'll admit. I want to thank Ben. Ben's been on my program. It's been so fun to have you, Ben. And he's been a great resource. I've met great resources when I started doing this. But I want to take you back to when I started radio, because it'll tell you a little bit about my journey and about, I think, where the average American's at, to tell you the truth. I have been an entrepreneur. I actually was a guitar teacher, and I invented a line of products that went into Walmart. And so that's why I was on the Oprah show. So I was an entrepreneur. I did some stuff with Dancing with the Stars, and then I was sort of between gigs. I was just sort of some downtime. And I won tickets to the local radio show. I'd never won tickets before. And I went to pick them up, and when I walked in the door, this little voice said to me, "You're going to work here with these people." And I went, yeah, I'm not a radio? I mean, come on. I had never even thought of radio. And so I kept running into people from the station for 2 solid months. And so then I thought, okay, all right, surrender. I will just go in and see what I can do to help them or to be a part of the radio station, figuring it was in marketing or some of the expertise that I had. I went in, had the interview, and he sat and he closed his eyes. And he said, "I'm just listening." And I kept talking, and I thought this was weird. And he said, I said, "What are you doing?" And he said, "Well, I just," he goes, I have a opening on this talk show, and two days ago, and I really think I'm supposed to put you on the show." And I said, "Talk radio, like talking?" And he said, "Yeah." He said, "Yeah." He said, "Talk radio," which is really funny because I hated it and would never listen to it. My husband loved it, and every time I went in the car, I would turn it to music. So I thought it was really funny, ironic. So he sent me down to meet my co-host to see if we would hit it off. And we did, and I have to thank Brian, because in this journey, I would not be, or be doing the show I'm doing today if it hadn't have been for Brian, who knew correct principles and really battered me on the radio for the first solid year. It was an embarrassment. It was so hard. In fact, when I first started radio, Ben asked me, my manager, he said, "Are you well read?" And I said, this is such a great quote, really, for all of us is, well, I know what I know. So I said, yes. I didn't say it was People magazine. I just said, yes, I'm well read. I could tell you the names of every star and their relationship status verbatim. I could just spill that out. And he said, you'll be perfect. Great, great. So I get in with a constitutionalist, okay, and I am a Republican. Always had been a Republican, and I thought I was well read, and I get to do these shows, and Brian is battering me on every topic, everything I say, and really getting me to think, So when I started it, I wanted to do it well, so I launched into reading 5-6 hours a day, sometimes 8. Right now, it's kind of on the average of about 6 per day. And I'll tell you something, after the course of 4 years, you can imagine when you look in the right places, what you'll find. Amazing. So I'm a completely different person politically than from the day I started. And that has been a trip because it's been fun as people have listened to the show all 4 years and have emailed me and commented on that and patted me on the head. Very good, very good. So that's been kind of fun. The journey is important because the show I'm doing on a Fox News network, and it's the only Fox News network in Utah, it's unusual. And it probably is the reason I'm able to get the guests that I'm able to get because of the moniker of the show. I want to tell you a little bit about the show and what we talk about, because I think it blows people's minds that are listening to the show thinking that they're probably going to get one thing and they get another. I'll tell you about some of the guests. I've interviewed Dr. Ben Carson, just right as he was announcing his presidency, and Rand Paul and Ron Paul. I've interviewed Lou Rockwell a couple of times on the show. I just did G. Edward Griffin from The Creature of Jekyll Island. I've done numerous guests, lots of whistleblowers, Cybele Edmonds. Cybele Edmonds did the show from a mountaintop in Turkey. She doesn't do interviews anymore. And she was the whistleblower for 9/11. She was the translator. And she actually, they made her out to be a horrible translator when they didn't like what she had to say. And so she did 60 Minutes and did a lot of shows. She came on my show. I was actually really excited. And what was funny about that was that she got emails saying, seriously, Fox News, is this a setup? And so she said, no, this is not a setup. We had a wonderful interview. Lou Rockwell is amazing. There's a lot of people that have been truly amazing in Libertarian, in Republican, a lot of different independents, a lot of different people on the show. We've exposed probably every topic that you can possibly imagine, I think. In fact, I have a guest coming on Tuesday, and when I contacted him, I didn't know anything about him. One of my listeners had told me to contact him, and he actually, he said, I've been dark for 2 months, 3 months, actually. He said, I had a visit from 2 CIA officers, and they told me to shut up, and I took all my YouTube videos down, and I decided that I was just gonna be dark. I wasn't gonna do this anymore. And he is coming out of that and doing the show. He said, when I got your email, I thought, no, I'm gonna do this. I'm not going to shut up anymore. And he'll be talking about CERN, and he'll be talking about the computer that they're gonna be using in that when they keep it open. If they're able to do what they're going to do to keep that open. So it's going to be, he just said, I don't want to talk about the computer on the air, but I'll talk about everything else. So I commend people for coming on the show and for telling the truth. If it wasn't for them, I wouldn't be able to do this. And so I have Susan Lindauer, who's a CIA whistleblower. I've had all kinds of people. She was actually the second person imprisoned on the Patriot Act, and without a trial for a solid year, not even a hearing. She wasn't even allowed to examine her evidence against her. And they also tried to make her seem crazy, and then they wanted to medicate her, basically give her a lobotomy, and she fought it. And the only reason that she actually got out, because it was the judge's last day in New York, and he finally just said, they don't have a case, let her out. And that, or otherwise she'd be in for 10 years. So she was just on the show. I've had a lot of individuals that were willing to tell the truth. So I think the secret of the show is just having people that are willing to come on and say what they need to say and have a microphone to do it. And then, of course, a global audience to listen. And most of the people that listen to the show really have changed a lot over the course of the last few years. After hearing this every day, 3 hours a day, you start to get the idea that maybe other people are in charge, right? And that the Federal Reserve is not federal, it's not a reserve, it's not a bank. I mean, when you get down to the nitty-gritty, you finally go, wait a minute, it doesn't make sense, all of these things. And so in order to have these guests on the radio, I have to study quite a bit and be prepped for that. But I've had this front row seat. It's been kind of amazing. Okay, so I'll tell you some of the things, and this is sort of the secret to doing a show on a major label. And quite honestly, I don't know why they still let me do it. Honestly, I expect them to come in at any time and say no. But I think it's stretching the limits. And what I mean is, I could do the show that most Fox News shows are doing. I could, I'll give you an example. They wanted me to do a 1-minute newscast, and they wanted it to play on the top of every hour. And I said, that's fine. I'll record it when I come into the studio. It'll play all day and all night. I did the recording for a couple of weeks, and I couldn't read it anymore. It was such spin and such garbage that I had to put my spin on it. And if I couldn't put my spin on it, I wasn't going to read it, because it wasn't news to me. It was just fake news. And I thought, I'm not going to do this anymore. So I'll just read to you 2 clips of how I do that. So people now listen for the little changes in the wording to see what I'm going to say. But this is just 2 clips. I do 3 stories a day. This plays every single hour on the channel. The Cedar City Library is one of 19 libraries in the nation, the only one in Utah to host Exploring Human Origins. What does it mean to be human? Traveling exhibit in October. Curious attendees will be able to view 5 different skulls from different time periods to show that we went from apes to humans, and then suddenly, for no reason, stopped evolving for no apparent reason. Okay, so that one got some interesting emails. And then here's another one. The Utah Health Policy Project received a $740,000 grant of our taxpayer dollars to offer free insurance or insurance paid by the middle class for enrollment assistance. The assistance will be paid for by us, will help us to enroll in healthcare we cannot afford, so that more of us can pay for the rest of us to be healthy. Because that's what it is, right? Okay. My favorite is Senator Hatch. I'm not a fan, and sorry if you guys are. I know, I am so sorry. So yesterday on the news, and I got some flack for this by my manager, but he was fine with it. I said the statement about privacy. He came out with a statement that said, yes, privacy is your right, but Congress has not yet enacted the law. So I said, according to the politicians' guide to doublespeak, this means that they don't care about your rights and that they will never possibly change them. Done. So I pretty much change every news story so people can understand what the real news is. And it's been kind of refreshing, I think, for some people. I think we're just tired of hearing the spin. I don't know about you. Let me grab a drink of water. Hold on a second. All right. So I think it's stretching the boundaries, because I guess I could have read the newscast like it is, but I thought, I can't do this anymore. So, and then when it became popular, now they can't undo it, right? They can't stop it. So, because now everybody, even the mayor wants to know how I'm going to skewer him, because when they put in limits on signage, I said, well, the city council in the newscast would be happy to have a home visit with you nightly to assess your sense of decency before giving you the sign permit. And so he just laughed. They laugh. I mean, they think it's funny too. But I really poke at their regulations and everything else. But I think what would be fun is if we had this in every community, right? If we were able to listen to news that either, I don't know, a little bit of satire, but also, oh my gosh, do you guys realize how ridiculous this is kind of news. So the things that we've covered on the show recently, 9/11, CFR, CIA and the media. I did a whole hour on the undercover job that they've done with journalists, and how they've infiltrated and put in journalists since, well, really since 40s, 50s, but also to the level that we have of the infiltration. The beginning of Time magazine was CFR owned, Newsweek, all of it is just garbage. So when I have guests on the show like Don Fotheringham, who wrote The President Makers, what a terrific book that is, and it came out a year ago. I recommend it to everybody. These are the kind of books I tell my my audience to read. And also, I think it's not having fear. We all know that Satan has two things that he loves to use, two tools, and that is deception and distraction. And he's so good at it. And it's so pervasive in our news now that we don't even know when we're being lied to anymore. And I think if there's any reason I'm probably doing this show is so that we can identify it and know when it's coming down the pike, so that we can be better stewards of fighting it. Because I even have my cognitive dissonance. We all do. And as much as I've read and as much as I've studied, and I'm a fast reader, but I'll tell you, I have to read about three books a week, solid books a week at least, then all the other articles that come at me. But I will say this, the globalists are doing a fantastic job. They get gold stars for really for making this nation what it is right now, because they are at the helm, and I wish people realize that. I had a guy, a little liberal, he's my little liberal friend, and he said to me, if you weren't such a loony, you wouldn't deserve the socialism you're about to get with Sanders. And I said, so you're saying socialism is a punishment? Because he was all for it. Yeah, that's what he's saying. All right. I've also had Ed Haslam on. Ed Haslam was the one that wrote the book Dr. Mary's Monkey. And Dr. Mary's Monkey is all about the polio vaccine given from 1955 to 1963. It ended up giving how many Americans cancer? The 4 soft tissue cancers went through the roof after that time. Breast cancer, melanoma, I think lymphoma, prostate. And so all of these things, people are just blown away. They've never heard this before. And so Ed Haslam was great. He came on for 2 hours and really went through that with us. He also talked about, and this wasn't in his book, but he talked about the fact that in 1941 to 42, they had come out with a string of antibiotics. They didn't have polio at the rate that they had it until after those antibiotics left and were distributed. Then all of a sudden polio went through the roof. So then they work on polio, and they knew it was tainted. The CDC, it's on their website. They knew it was tainted. They're saying 3 million deaths. That's a farce, because 1.5 million people die of those a year. So we know that that's not true. But on the flip side of that, even the people don't realize that the former president of the Cancer Institute said, oh no, I'm swearing by this polio vaccine between 55 and 63. I'll even give it to my grandchildren, gave it to his grandchildren. One ended up with polio and one died 48 hours later. So these are the things we talk about on a daily basis. I've also had, we've talked to gay marriage, and on that, I have gay friends. But this was my stance. Well, I'm a Christian, and I still am going to think it's immoral. So if somebody goes and changes, and they come to me, like my friend, and they say, well, I'm gay. Well, you've changed, but I haven't. I'm not changing my stance. I'm sorry. I still love you. We're friends. But I'm still going to be vocal about that. I am still going to say what I think. You're not going to silence me and make me say anything different or change, because I'm not going to. So on the radio, we're pretty frank about conversations. And if people if they don't agree with me, it's okay. That's totally fine. But this is America, so we have the forum to say what we want on the radio. And I feel like I am not censoring myself at all. So, but I know that is a bad word on the radio. You cannot say immoral, ever. That is not kosher. But it doesn't matter, does it? I've talked about the women in the priesthood. I've talked about Agenda 21. I've talked about, when I talk about the women in the priesthood, I'm just really out with it, and I say, you know what? I love being a woman. My husband loves being a man. I don't need to wear a pair of pants to feel special, and I don't need to have the priesthood to feel amazing. I'm amazing as I am. I mean, give me a break, right? Okay, so it's hard. I think it's hard to do that, but I think that people need to be brave and just say it. I mean, I'm so tired of being quiet, aren't you? I'm so tired of not saying what I want to say, so I just say it, and I figure if I'm fired, I really don't care because I'll go work at Costco. I really don't care. And then I've actually played Ezra Taft Benson on the radio. I have played Paul Harvey on the radio. I've played all kinds of clips, and my Ezra Taft Benson days are some of my most favorite because they're fun and they're amazing, and people don't understand who he met with and what he said about communism. So I play it. I played it a couple times on my show. And you know what's interesting about this is the numbers went through the roof, where my boss kind of thought, oh my gosh, you're treading on some thin ice. I said, you know what? People are tired of listening to the other voice. So we have to have these voices. And I wish people had a more fearless attitude towards saying what they want. And it's okay if you don't agree with them. Everybody comes from a different path, and everybody comes from a different road. And it's so okay if people don't agree with me, but I am not going to be silent. I'm just not. So, okay. Anyway. And I do have the guests like Mark Stein and Cal Thomas and all of those guests too, and I mix them in. Monday is Richard Paul Evans. I'm having Corbin Burnson on. He wrote a book about girls having purity before they get married. Oh my gosh, can you even imagine? Right? What a shocker. And so I'll have him on my show, and a lot of radio shows won't, but I will, because I think his message is important. So my message to you today is be fearless, because we don't have time not to be. I don't have time to sit and worry about a career on a Fox News channel. It isn't what I want to worry about. So if I get fired, that's okay, because I'll find something else to do. But I think this journey has been amazing for me, because I understand government in a totally different way now than I ever did. The government I see, I don't hate people are funny, because if you start to say these things, they say, you hate your country. No, I don't. I love my country. It's a compilation of all those guests I've had on my show. They're amazing. They speak the truth. They're fabulous. That's America. It's the people that stand up. I just don't love my government. I don't love them. I think they're really evil. I don't love what they do. So anyway. And I make that distinction daily because I want people to understand that we are not our government. And I don't know if people really grasp that. I think they lump it together, and I don't think people should. And the guests that come on, I've got more guests next week, and every time I feel like we've said it all and done it all, right, Ben? You've been on my show, and we just say it. We don't care. It's so interesting how the sponsors come, how the people come, and now we are in 68 countries. Isn't that amazing? Like in the last few months, it just went pff. So the SoundCloud, when people go to my SoundCloud, it's SoundCloud Canyon Media, they can listen to all these hour shows, and the numbers have just gone through the roof. And I only think it's because it has nothing to do with me. What it is it's just a catalyst for learning truth. Because when you know truth, when you see it, you can't unsee it, right? So once you know, you can't unknow, so you then have a responsibility. And I ended Thursday's show with this. You might not always be able to change the world. Probably none of us will. That's the hard truth. We want to, but we won't. Okay? But here is the real truth. You can change your crowd. Your crowd might be 5 people. You might be a hermit, I don't know. Your crowd might be 500, 1,000, 2,000. You might have 2,000 people on Facebook. If everybody in this room were able to speak to their crowd and change just their crowd, then you change the world. I think sometimes we stay silent because we think for social norms, right? For social norms, we just kind of shy away from saying things. We're so nice. We're so nice in Utah, right? It's a disease. It's a disease we need to get rid of. But I will say this, you have influence on your crowd, no matter how big it is. And I think that's what you're held accountable for. That's your responsibility. And now my responsibility is to this crowd on the radio. And I want them to know truth, and I don't care what side of the aisle it is. They're two sides of the same coin. And I think once you finally see that, once you finally see that they don't care about the parties, we do. We are the infighters. We're the Republicans versus the Democrats. We're all fighting. They don't care. They're just doing policies, and they're on their agenda, and they're just moving forward. It takes getting to the point where you see that they're two sides of the same coin before you really see government for what it is. And I think that people can work within parties that are great, and they're fantastic people, but then you have a Senator Hatch, and you have a Reid, and you have all of these just boneheads. And these guys are just, they're so bought and sold. I wish they would wear NASCAR outfits. You know, the NASCAR jumpsuits with the patches, and then we would know who's buying them. That's what we would know. If they had to wear those into sessions, we would know where their money's coming from. I hate to say that, it sounds so negative, doesn't it? But when they get into office that long, we don't need term limits. We just need to be a smarter people that says you're out because you're not doing the right thing. It's a set-in term limit. We're just not smart enough to just make sure that they get out of office. So I just want to say, these are the things we talk about. I think boldness is perfect. I think be bold. Get on the radio, say things. If you're not on the radio, get on Facebook. If you're not on Facebook, take your friends to dinner. Everybody needs education, and everybody needs to understand what our government's really about and what they're really doing, because time is short. Time is short. That I feel. And I feel like time is short for me on the radio, to tell you the truth. So it makes me want to do every show this way, because it is so short. And we laugh, and we have fun with it, and I play theme songs, and I poke fun at people. But I'm telling you, it's fun, but it's still, look what is happening. We've got to get bolder. I really love my time on the radio every day. It's a blast, and it's worth the work, and it's worth the responsibility. And what a gift my Heavenly Father has given me to be able to do this. And thank you, Ben, for allowing me to speak today. I really appreciate all of you. You are a compilation of what's right. We all just need to get louder. We really do. Time's short. Thank you.